How does an 18-year-old girl walk into her sibling's bedroom, kiss them goodnight, and then smother them with her bare hands, just because she wanted what they had? April 18, 2025. Wichita, Kansas, a quiet cul-de-sac, a warm spring morning at 7:12 a.m. A frantic 911 call came from the Summers residence. The voice on the line belonged to Lily Summers, 18 years old, reporting that her two younger siblings, Eli, age 6, and Nora, age 9, weren't waking up. She said they were cold, that they must have gotten sick during the night, that she had found them like that, still tucked under the covers, lifeless. Paramedics arrived 8 minutes later. Nothing could be done. The children were declared dead on the scene. No signs of trauma, no visible wounds, no broken windows, no forced entry, no struggle. Just two perfect little bodies lying in peace. The scene didn't make sense until it started to. Because one thing did stand out Lily's voice. It wasn't hysterical. It wasn't panicked. It was steady, flat, as if she had rehearsed it, as if she'd been waiting for this moment, not fearing it. Detectives took note. The house was clean, too clean. The kid's bedroom had been locked from the inside with a latch, one that only Lily used. And then there was the positioning. Nora's arms were crossed, as if tucked in with care. Eli clutched a stuffed animal, placed in his arms postmortem. Officers started asking quiet questions. The coroner's report came in fast. Cause of death asphyxiation. No toxins, no blunt force, no suffocation with a pillow. Just hands. Human hands. Small, precise, intentional. That same afternoon, Lily was taken in for questioning. Not as a suspect. Not yet. Just a witness. She said she'd been up late reading, that she fell asleep with headphones on, that she hadn't heard anything. But her timeline was too perfect, her clothes too neat, her eyes too dry. And when her mother arrived, screaming, collapsing in the driveway, Lily didn't run to comfort her. She just stood by the window, watching, expressionless. It didn't feel like shock. It felt like completion. The detective on scene later said, "It wasn't what she said that scared me. It was how calm she was when she said it. Within 24 hours, everything would unravel." But the question that would haunt everyone forever was not just why Lily did it. It was how long she had wanted to. By the next morning, Wichita wasn't breathing. Wakefield Court, usually filled with children on bikes, dogs barking, sprinklers misting the air, was silent, frozen, like something sacred had been broken and no one wanted to move through the shards. 2 children were dead. No break-in, no scream, no struggle. And the person who found them was their own sister, Lily Summers, the oldest, the quiet one, the honor student. She had told first responders that maybe it was carbon monoxide, that she'd heard something about kids dying in their sleep like that. But the autopsy said otherwise. No poison, no chemical, just manual suffocation. The breath taken from their lungs by someone who knew them, someone they trusted, someone they probably loved. The neighborhood started to whisper. Parents pulled their kids inside. Reporters gathered like flies. The Summers' front lawn became a crime scene, a memorial, and a battlefield all at once. Teddy bears, candles, fly high Eli and Nora scrawled in pink on cardboard. But the faces behind the curtains weren't crying. They were confused, scared, watching Lily, because she wasn't grieving, she wasn't breaking, she wasn't even blinking. Surveillance from a neighbor's doorbell camera showed Lily calmly opening the front door at 6:41 a.m., stepping onto the porch. then walking back inside as if she had forgotten something. No urgency, no distress, just stillness. Her school counselor said Lily had always been emotionally controlled, but that morning, it looked less like control and more like vacancy. Something hollowed out, gone. And then, detectives found her phone. Nothing suspicious. Until they opened the Notes app. In a folder marked locked, they found a list titled, "Things They Got That I Didn't." 23 items, starting with attention, affection, birthday parties after I turned 12, and ending with a reason to exist in this house. The entries were dated, tracked, built like evidence. One officer called it a jealousy timeline. Another called it a manifesto. The last entry was time-stamped at 2:18 a.m., just 4 hours before the bodies were discovered. It read, "They'll finally stop calling me dramatic." That sentence changed everything, because now it wasn't about grief. It was about motive, about something that had been growing quietly in a girl's chest for years. Not rage, not hatred, just slow, hungry envy. And envy, when it festers long enough in silence, turns into something sharp enough to kill. By April 20th, the Summers house was still sealed off, but the truth was starting to leak through the cracks. And what investigators found next turned the case from tragic to chilling, because behind every motive is a shadow. And Lily's shadow wasn't just jealousy. It was obsession, deep, detailed, dangerous. Inside her bedroom closet, behind a row of winter coats, detectives found a small metal box, locked with a code. And when they pried it open, they found pages. Handwritten, folded into squares, each marked with a number, 1 through 14. Each one a letter addressed not to a friend, not to a parent, but to her youngest sister, Nora, beginning with "Dear Nora, today you got ice cream, and I got silence," followed by, "They kissed you goodnight and forgot I was still at the table." And it didn't stop there. The notes became darker, sharper, more deliberate. "You're everything they wish I still was. So I'll take back what I gave." The last letter, number 14, had no salutation, no punctuation, just one line. "I want to see how quiet you really are when you stop breathing." Investigators read that line in silence, then read it again. Because what they were seeing wasn't a breakdown. It was a build-up, controlled and intentional. And then came the drawings, in the margins of her school notebooks, tucked between chemistry formulas and English essays. Crude pencil sketches of 2 small figures in bed, sleeping, crossed out with an X. In one image, a girl stands over them with a hand pressed over each mouth, and she's smiling. It wasn't fan art. It was fantasy, made real with graphite and control. And still, there was more. Because Lily's browser history showed late-night searches weeks before the murders. How long does it take to stop breathing? Can kids fight back in their sleep? Methods of silent restraint. None of them bookmarked. None of them hidden. As if she wanted them to be found. As if she was building not a defense, but a legacy. And then came the biggest twist of all. Surveillance footage from a CVS parking lot, 3 days before the incident, showed Lily getting into the passenger seat of a black sedan with tinted windows. The driver, unknown. Male, mid-20s, never seen again. The car was later found abandoned near the edge of town, wiped clean. But it raised a new possibility. Did Lily have help? Or was she rehearsing for something worse? Because now the case wasn't just about what she did. It was about how far she was willing to go before someone noticed she was drowning in plain sight. And by the time they finally arrested her, She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just whispered one thing as they cuffed her wrists. I thought it would feel louder. April 22nd, 2025. 4 days after the murders, and Wichita police were no longer treating Lily Summers like a suspect. They were treating her like a ticking bomb that had already gone off. The evidence wasn't just piling up, it was circling, like a noose tightening with every hour. Forensics revealed that the cloth used to smother Nora and Eli contained traces of diphenhydramine, an over-the-counter sleep aid, crushed and soaked into the fabric, strong enough to sedate but not kill, administered by someone who knew just enough to be dangerous. A receipt surfaced from a 24-hour drugstore on April 14th, paid in cash. Surveillance showed Lily in a hoodie, standing in line alone, emotionless, focused. But the most disturbing discovery came not from receipts or fingerprints, but from a hidden folder on Lily's old laptop titled Night Garden. Inside were files, audio files, recordings. Some were just breathing, ambient silence, the hum of her siblings sleeping. But one file, dated the night of the murders, was different, 38 minutes long. The microphone had been hidden near the hallway. The first 10 minutes were footsteps, soft, slow, then whispers. Lily's voice, barely audible, saying things like, "You don't have to wake up, and it's better this way. I promise." At minute 21, a muffled cry, not loud, just one, followed by 30 seconds of silence, and then humming. A melody, twisted, childlike. Investigators froze when they heard it. The same lullaby Lily's mother used to sing to all 3 kids when they were little. She hadn't heard it in years, but Lily had memorized it, and she used it as the soundtrack to murder. The last line of the file was Lily's voice again, clear this time, calm, even soft. Now they'll stop saying their names louder than mine. When detectives confronted her with the recording, she didn't ask how they found it. She didn't deny it was her. She simply said, "They always fell asleep when I talked. Why should this be different?" That wasn't guilt. That was calculation. And beneath it, something worse. Relief. Because Lily hadn't broken. She hadn't snapped. She had evolved into something sharper, something colder, something that learned, slowly, painfully, how to make the silence around her finally listen. April 24th, 2025. Everything cracked at once. In 1 hour, the entire case shifted from a murder investigation to something deeper, something diseased. It started with a journal, found not in Lily's bedroom, but in a sealed cardboard box in the family's attic, tucked behind old holiday decorations, labeled in her handwriting, "The Invisible Years." Inside were 112 pages of entries, poems, rants, letters never sent, thoughts never spoken, written over a span of 4 years. The first entry was dated 2 days after Eli was born. Lily was 14. "They don't look at me the same. I became wallpaper the second he arrived." What followed was a psychological spiral, documented in ink, in patterns, in escalation. One page listed every gift Nora had received since birth, compared against her own. Another listed how many times her mother had hugged her in a month. Me, 1. Nora, 17. Eli, 14. Hugged back me, 0. But the most chilling part came in the back. A set of pages marked finale, a detailed timeline. April 18th circled in red, 3:05 a.m. Administer sedative, 3:30. Suffocate Nora, 3:45. Eli, 4:10. Clean hands. Reposition bodies. 4:45. Unlock front door. Lie on couch. 6:30. Call 911. 7:10. Cry if needed. The last note. Do not flinch. Silence is strength. Detectives read it aloud in the interrogation room. Lily didn't move, didn't blink. She simply said, "That was the clean version." The first draft was messier. Her voice wasn't cold. It was proud, controlled, like she had been waiting for someone to finally acknowledge how carefully she had arranged it all. But the bomb didn't stop there. Police had seized Lily's school-issued laptop days earlier. They had run standard scans, found nothing, until a forensic analyst checked the audio editing software. There, buried in an archived cache folder, was a digital video project titled Unnoticed. It was a 5-minute montage, footage of her siblings, her family, home videos, school events, birthdays. Lily was behind the camera every time. The final minute showed black screen, with white text fading in. One sentence at a time. They laughed. I filmed. They spoke. I listened. They were loved. I watched. Now they sleep. And then, one frame of Lily's face, looking directly into the lens. No smile, just stillness, like she had finally stepped into the picture. By that night, her parents had stopped speaking to the press. Their friends said they were catatonic, destroyed beyond words. But the internet hadn't stopped. The video had leaked. The footage had gone viral. And what terrified people the most was how understandable it all looked when laid out like that. Not justified, but real. Like you could trace the pain all the way back, like a pressure cooker with no valve. Lily hadn't just committed a crime. She had designed a revelation. And in doing so, she turned grief into something that no one could bury. By April 25th, 2025, the investigation had shifted from how Lily killed to why no one saw it coming. And what unfolded next wasn't just a breakdown of evidence. It was a postmortem on a family that had been dying in silence for years. Detectives reconstructed her final week, like an architect reverse engineering a collapse. Monday, she skipped lunch and used the time to scan documents at the school library. Tuesday, she checked out a psychology book on nonverbal trauma response and never returned it. Wednesday, she logged into a VPN under a hidden profile called Quiet Route, searching for symptomless sedatives, methods of soft suffocation, and how to feel nothing while doing something permanent. Thursday, she stayed home from school, said she had a migraine, and deleted every photo of her siblings from her phone, except one. A blurry image of Eli sleeping, time-stamped 3 days before his death. And then there was Friday, April 18th, the day everything happened. At 2:13 a.m., Lily turned off her bedroom light. At 2:59, the hallway camera picked up her shadow outside her sibling's door. At 3:06, the door opened. At 4:18, it closed. At 6:37, she made the 911 call. The precision was terrifying. But even more disturbing was the way she had covered her tracks emotionally. Because Lily had spent the months leading up to the murders smiling, performing. Teachers described her as polite, focused, driven. Her therapist, seen once a month, had notes full of phrases like emotionally contained, does not express anger, deflects praise. But beneath that calm was a girl taking inventory of every slight. Every moment she felt smaller, dimmer, more invisible. The investigation uncovered a chilling detail from a voice memo Lily recorded on her phone 4 months earlier. It was only 11 seconds long, just her whispering, "What if I'm the scream no one hears, because I never make a sound?" She had built this plan the way someone might build a bomb out of ordinary parts. Slowly, quietly, until the final click. And when they interviewed her ex-best friend, a girl named Taylor, who had stopped speaking to her the year prior, Taylor said one sentence that no one could shake. She used to say being forgotten was worse than dying. I didn't think she meant it. But Lily hadn't chosen to die. She had chosen to detonate, while staying alive to watch what it did to everyone else. And that's what scared investigators most, because this wasn't a girl who lost control. This was a girl who took it and never gave it back. April 27th, 2025. 48 hours after Lily Summers was officially charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. She sat in an interrogation room with her wrists uncuffed and her back perfectly straight, the same posture she'd used during piano recitals and school assemblies. And yet now, it felt unnatural, too still, too precise, like her body had learned to hold its shape even as everything inside had already burned down. 2 detectives entered. No mirrors, no lawyers. Just tape rolling and breath held. She looked at them, nodded once, and waited. They didn't ask if she had done it. That part was over. What they wanted, what everyone wanted, was the why. Not the surface-level explanation, not the "they got more attention" line. They wanted to get into the engine. But Lily didn't flinch. She looked one of them in the eye and said, "I didn't do it because I hated them. I did it because I couldn't survive watching them be loved in front of me." Her voice was flat, but there was no fog in it, no confusion, no tremble. She remembered every detail, the dosage, the timing, the moment Eli stirred and she whispered, "Shh," until he went still again. The detectives asked her if she had felt regret afterward. She shook her head. Not cruel, not smug, just empty. "Regret is for people who didn't make a decision," she said. They asked about the planning. She described how she tested the sound of the mattress springs when she sat on each of their beds, how she measured how long it took her mother to fall asleep when she worked a double shift, how she had watched instructional videos on holding your breath to control heart rate and remain undetectable. She was not improvising, she was executing. And then came the question they almost didn't ask. "Did you ever plan to hurt your parents too?" She didn't answer at first. Then, finally, no. "I wanted them to live. I wanted them to suffer." That sentence silenced the room. One detective would later write in his notes, "She wasn't angry at the world. She was precision-wired to destroy just enough of it to be seen." After 6 hours, they ended the session. She stood on her own, walked quietly back to her cell. No tears, no resistance. And as the door slammed shut behind her, the guard swore he heard her whisper something under her breath. "I finally matter now." It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a confession. It was a girl who had buried 2 siblings and unearthed herself. April 29th, 2025. The official confession took place in a beige courtroom with fluorescent lights that hummed like nervous breath, the kind of place where the truth doesn't scream, it waits. Lily Summers was brought in, wearing beige prison scrubs, her hair tied back, face untouched, still the quiet daughter in every sense except one. She had killed the children she shared blood with, and now the whole state was watching to see if she would explain why. The judge asked her to speak. She rose, no paper, no notes, just her voice, steady, unshaking, like it had never been given permission to be heard until now. "I know what I did. I know it can't be undone. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for sympathy. I just want someone, anyone, to understand what it feels like to be forgotten by the people who built your life." She inhaled, then kept going. Eli and Nora were not bad kids. They were loved. That's what hurt most. They were praised for breathing. I had to set myself on fire, just to get a glance. Gasps filled the room. Her mother broke into tears. Her father turned away. Lily didn't look at them. I was raised in the same house, under the same roof, but somehow I stopped existing the moment they started. Every time I came second, every time I was told to be older, to be quieter, to understand, I understood. I just never forgot. She spoke about the birthdays that faded, the report cards that didn't matter, the nights she sat alone in her room, listening to laughter through the walls. She said the first time she felt real was when she held the pillow over Nora's face, because for the first time in years, someone noticed I was there. No one moved. No one breathed. It wasn't rage, she said. It was erasure. It was years of being a ghost in my own house. And then came the final line, delivered without apology, without malice. Just cold understanding. I didn't kill them to silence them. I killed them so I could hear myself. She sat down. The courtroom didn't erupt. It collapsed into quiet horror. Because this wasn't a monster speaking. This was a girl who had been rotting in plain sight. And no one, not her parents, not her teachers, not her friends, had seen the silence turning into strategy. And now, it was too late. Because the confession wasn't a cry for help. It was a final act of control. By May 1st, 2025, the case of Lily Summers had split the country in two. Online, on television, in living rooms and classrooms and dinner tables that suddenly felt colder. Because her face wasn't the face people expected. And her voice, clear and emotionless, became something that echoed long after the videos stopped playing. Some called her a monster, a sociopath, evil wearing teenage skin. Others called her a symptom, the result of years of being emotionally starved while watching affection pour down on everyone but her. News anchors didn't know how to describe her. She was brilliant, disturbed, invisible, and undeniable. One said, psychologists were pulled onto every morning show. Some called it reactive attachment disorder. Some called it narcissistic collapse. But none of their words could explain how an 18-year-old girl had turned envy into a blueprint for murder and followed it down to the minute. Twitter burned with hashtags, and under each post came the war. People defending her, people hating her, people terrified they saw parts of themselves in her. A clip of her confession went viral, especially the moment she said, "I didn't kill them to silence them. I killed them so I could hear myself." And that one line became a mirror for everyone watching, because it didn't sound like horror. It sounded like recognition. And that's what made it worse. At school, teachers began checking in more often with the quiet kids. Mental health professionals held emergency seminars on emotional neglect in high-functioning youth. And yet none of it felt like it could undo what had already been done. Lily's house remained empty, a memorial of teddy bears and crayon drawings and rage. One card taped to the porch read, "You could have just asked for help." Another said, "How many times did she ask?" And we didn't hear her parents stopped speaking publicly, retreated into grief, surrounded by cameras they never wanted. People who once knew them crossed the street now, unsure what to say to parents who had lost 2 children and were still expected to visit a third in prison. But the worst fracture wasn't in the family. It was in the culture. Because Lily had exposed something everyone wanted to ignore. That maybe love isn't enough when it's unequally distributed. That maybe the most dangerous wounds are the ones inflicted by neglect wrapped in routine. That maybe not every killer is born in darkness. Some are raised in the warmest rooms of the house, unnoticed until they burn it all down, just to prove they were ever there. May 12th, 2025. The courtroom was full but silent. The kind of silence that doesn't wait, it watches. Breath held, throat tight, because everyone already knew the verdict. They just needed to hear it said out loud, to believe it was real. The judge's voice was calm, almost too calm, when he read the words, "Guilty on all counts. 2 life sentences. No possibility of parole." Lily Summers didn't blink, didn't flinch. She stood with perfect posture, the same way she always had in school photos, choir recitals, birthday videos where she was never quite in the center of the frame. Her parents sat 2 rows behind, hands trembling, faces locked somewhere between shame and unbearable grief. The kind of grief that doesn't cry. It crumbles quietly and forever. The court offered her a chance to speak. She walked to the front with no emotion, no hesitation, and said only one thing: "I never wanted to be the villain. I just wanted to stop feeling invisible." And that was it. That was the final nail. Outside the courthouse, people screamed her name, some in hatred, some in eerie admiration. Signs clashed. Justice for Nora and Eli beside. Listen to the silent ones. But the one that stayed longest was handwritten, taped to a lamppost. She didn't break. She was cracked from the start. In the weeks that followed, documentaries launched. Think pieces flooded the internet. A best-selling author called her the new blueprint of feminine violence. One psychologist coined a new term: invisible child syndrome. Schools implemented programs to check on middle children, quiet students, withdrawn teens. But beneath every change was a question no one could shake. What if Lily had simply been loved differently, equally loudly? Her old bedroom was cleared out, everything boxed up, her notebooks locked in evidence, her name sealed in legal archives. But something remained, something that couldn't be archived or buried. Her voice. That sentence. "I didn't kill them to be remembered. I killed them because I was already gone." That line stayed. It played again and again in court transcripts, podcasts, whispers between parents at playgrounds. Not because it justified anything, but because it revealed something no one wanted to admit. That sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones that come crashing through the door. Sometimes they're already sitting quietly at your dinner table, smiling, watching, disappearing. One quiet day at a time.